My name is Carmen Cisterna, and I am a life and confidence coach for women and young teen girl athletes. Part of what I do is, we start at young girls as we head into women, and we really concentrate on a couple of things. I help women look at removing self-doubt and return back to really just trusting themselves again. I think we've lost sight of that. And by doing that, we can own our story. We shift the narrative on what we currently think about ourselves, and of course, just move into owning our story and then moving into transition. So before becoming a coach, I had such a variety of background. And as you're growing up and you're going through sort of the natural stages of life, you tend to sometimes, especially whatever your parents did in life, they tend to guide you in that direction. So I had worked over, 25 years in corporate, ranging from so many different types of roles, all of which shaped me in very different ways, from training and recruitment over to strategy, and then being a coach, actually, more in the financial services industry. On top of that, I'm also a mom. I'm also a wife. There were so many transitions in my life, but corporate has been such a huge part of who I am and kind of what's shaped me over the last 25 years. And that's sort of where I kind of grew to do different types of roles and figure out what is it that I'd like to do. We tend to want to move through that corporate ladder, and that's essentially what I did before really going into coaching. A big part of my story, it's so imperative that other people know. It's really easy to look at coaches, within this industry now that can speak with so much confidence, feel like they have it all together, know their worth. And one thing I want people to know is that it's okay not to actually feel that way all the time. I think a big part of my journey is for people to understand that, I have people telling me all the time, I wish I had your confidence. I wish I was as confident as you. But deep down inside, I was a chronic people pleaser. And that wasn't serving me as well. I think I could put on a brave face most of the time and sometimes make decisions that I knew was right for me. A lot of times making decisions that I knew wasn't right for me, but the fear of disappointment in people, whether it was family and friends, really sort of overtook the way I thought, and the way I took action with a lot of things. And I think what happened there is that it ended up holding me back in some places. I was really scared to take a lot of risk. I thought it was taking risk. Looking back now, I think I was playing it safe. And that's a big part of my story that I want people to understand. And to be quite honest, you still struggle with today. Confident people aren't confident 24/7. And when we teach people about confidence, it's really just about how do we make those decisions day by day, but really knowing there's days where we're not okay. There's days where we're doing things that we could probably say we really don't want to do. It might not be aligned. And so it's not something that you hold, 24/7 all the time with every aligned action that you take. It's really just a practice. It's really about finding the leaks. And I think that's what I got really good at, is just knowing where it was leaking and really just trying to work on those confidence leaks, sort of one leak at a time, if we could say it that way. Yeah. So many things inspired me to become a coach. I would say it would be, one of these things, probably for a long time, I was always into sort of self-development. I loved reading books. You see coaches on every talk show that would come on, right? Watching Dr. Phil, and here comes this famous life coach that's on there. And I remember just always being inspired. I remember being like, that's just the kind of person that I just love to do that every day. Like, it almost shocked me that people got paid for this. And what sort of inspired me was really leaning into feedback. And I started to listen to what people were telling me. And it's really amazing when you start to really listen to what your family says about you. They might drop little things to you saying, you're so good at that. Like, or I love talking to you about this. Starting to listen, and which is ironic being a coach because we do a lot of listening, but really listening to what people were saying. And, as I, kind of went into the latter part of my years into my 40s, you really start to grow a level of confidence that's really hard to explain, actually. And you really start to tell yourself, life starts to feel, it begins to be too short. And what is it that I want to do? I was never unhappy. I have a beautiful life, I have a beautiful family, we get to travel. But there was a part of you that always thought, what, like, why can't I feel totally fulfilled with what I'm doing? I still love my job. I love the people that I work with. But what is it that I need to be fulfilled? What is it that I love to do? And so many people came into my life saying, like, you've really got a good ability to just read the room, to just know what people are feeling and know what they need at the time. Do you need to, like, turn it up a notch in terms of feedback, or do you need to just be the calm for them? And I started to listen. And I don't know if it was crazy internet algorithms, because who knows what comes around that days, but all of these advertisements started to come up about coaching, and it was something I started to socialize with people around me. So I thought, my goodness, I would love to do this on an everyday basis. Um, and I would say, also having two daughters has really taught me a lot about when confidence actually starts, and how it gets shaped. And they've been probably my biggest teachers in terms of what we need to do to help support young females. I know I talked about young athletes. And then from there, it was really just about, I think I'm going to try this. And then, when I think about confidence, and it was something that I've always felt really comfortable sort of taking risks, I thought, well, why not? Right? I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? Right? And that's sort of what brought me into it. It was time for me to listen to doing something that like really filled my cup on a day to day. Yeah. Coaching is so different. How I think about coaching is so different today than what I had previously thought about coaching. For anyone that has, been in the corporate world for a really long time, coaching always meant correcting. Coaching always meant providing the answers. Coaching always meant identifying where the gaps is, providing all of the solutions, and really just giving people the answers that they need. I view coaching so differently today, because coaching for me really means about listening. It means about empathizing. It really means using what you've done, using your experiences, and really being able to provide guidance to folks that are, or to your clients that come to you, providing them guidance on how they come to their own decisions. I think that was the biggest aha moment for me was we're not giving answers here. We're really sort of enabling people to come out with their own path, their own answers. Um, Everyone has it in them. Everybody does. And I think for a lot of people, it's hard for them to believe that. And that's where, especially in women, we tend to self-doubt ourselves as opposed to self-trust. And so coaching to me really means, how do I help support these women, support these younger athletes to know that it's okay to feel how they're feeling. We want to, like I mentioned, we want to own that story. We want to own that narrative. And then we want to shift the narrative. And that's what coaching means to me, is how do I ask the most thought-provoking questions that have your clients thinking, oh, wow, I never thought of that before. Or, oh, wow, I think I can do that. And most importantly, it's helping people understand that feeling a whole bunch of feelings and emotions as they're going through these journeys, and especially women, because we tend to be more emotional in a lot of our decisions, that it's okay to feel the way that they feel and that it's normal and it's part of the process. If you want to cry about your decision, we can cry. If you want to get angry, we can get angry. But really, it's just about how do I help support them and really bring out what's already in them. They just need someone to be able to guide them in that right direction. So definitely not giving the answers, which is what I always thought coaching was. So it's definitely shifted for me from that perspective. Coaching has almost changed me like dramatically. The idea of, not always talking, and this is such a hard concept for most people that come into coaching, because we tend to want to just give all the answers and coach and, I'll sort of be that online therapist, even though we're not therapists. It's changed me in so many ways, actually, just as a human being. It allowed me, even in my daily interactions, even with my interactions with my friends as a mom, to just stop and listen. We tend to want to listen to respond versus listen to understand. And there's two very big differences there. And that was probably the biggest shift that's helped me in my current day-to-day life. Going through training with CTEDU, we were always encouraged to practice some of our lessons with our family. So it was interesting trying to listen to my husband but not respond. And anybody, who's in that position knows that it's very difficult to not want to respond to your husband. But it taught you to just really sit back and listen all the time, sit back and listen to your kids. It's been so beneficial having teenagers, where they tend to have a lot to say when they want to talk about maybe difficult situations, and you're trying to guide them. So it's really kind of helped from a parenting perspective as well to say, how do I just listen, and how do I just ask them the right questions to let empower them to make their own decisions, right? And allowing them to be that. So it's more than just a profession. I think when people learn the concept of coaching and the concept of listening and guiding and asking what I always call thought-provoking questions, you tend to want to do that with everyone around you. You'll have your, people around you saying, "Stop coaching me," because they'll tend to pick up on sort of that change in behavior. But in most situations, it helps from that perspective. So it goes far beyond the business. I think it's a life skill for most people actually to be able to do that. So yeah. Oh, CTEDU, our training class. I would say we were I think everyone says their class is special, but I would say our class was super special. And through sort of our interactions and the bonds and relationship that we've created with our colleagues, it taught so much about myself. As I was going through the journey with CTEDU, I went in with a level of confidence saying, "Oh yeah, I've coached before. I can do this." And then you start to learn new things. And so, what I learned about myself, a couple of things was, how does my body physically react to being uncomfortable? That also helped with coaching because we were put in many situations in which we felt uncomfortable. And we went in with a certain level of confidence and a certain level of like, yeah, I think I can do this. I know what I'm doing. And then it taught me that, some of the feelings I used to feel within my body was actually me feeling uncomfortable. It was actually me telling myself, "Ooh, I'm not feeling confident right now." But working through those kinds of feelings, the importance of having support. That's what I sort of bring back to CTEDU is the level of support that's provided while going through this journey of unlearning what coaching was, learning what coaching actually is, 100% being super uncomfortable with, interactions in your class because you say to yourself, "I don't want to say the wrong thing," or "I don't want to seem like I don't know what I'm doing." It really taught me to listen to myself. Vulnerability was a very big lesson going through my coaching journey with CTEDU because we did become vulnerable. We became vulnerable with people that were also feeling the same thing, though. So the permission to do that, the permission to feel that was amazing. And I honestly don't know if I would have been able to finish if I didn't have that kind of support around me for people that say, "It's okay, just start over. Like it's just me." And I learned that about myself that I think I almost got to the point where I was uncomfortable being uncomfortable. And I had to bring myself back to why I wanted to work with Mo in confidence because we tend to do this to ourselves all the time because we're scared of how we're going to be portrayed or what are people going to say about us. And, so constantly coming back to that cycle and that circle in your thought that those thoughts don't go away. But it helped me definitely manage through those thoughts and just move a little differently when it comes to being uncomfortable. The biggest transformative moment in class, and I remember, I think it was maybe lesson 4 or 5 coming into coaching, was it's okay to be human as a coach. We almost in the beginning, I had a tendency to feel as if I had to be not myself or super structured, or we couldn't let our personality come through. And the biggest aha moment was really learning from our coaches and our trainers that it's okay to be ourselves. It's okay to be human. It's okay to be human with your customers. And that really the biggest aha moment was authenticity is actually what brings you your clients. And it's not about being polished. It's not about being, completely, right all the time. It's really just about being authentic as a coach. And that was a huge aha moment for me, knowing that we could be authentic in our coaching practices with our clients. And that really honestly gave me the permission, and I think it was lesson five, it was somewhere around there. That after that it was just a different ball game, yeah, in terms of how we moved within the class and within our colleagues, like within the training class. The biggest advice that I would give someone wanting to become a coach is just start. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to have it all together. You do not need to have a full business built. I think these are narratives that people maybe learn or come to while watching everybody so polished and perfect on social media, and really just not knowing that behind the scenes, they probably don't have half the things they want to accomplish even done. And that's the one thing that I will say is no matter where you are in the journey, whether you are in week one or whether you are in week 20, just start. Little wins are always a win. Don't wait till things are perfect to start anything, because it will never feel like the right time. And I think it actually puts more undue pressure on yourself to do that. And that's part of the whole confidence piece as well that I talked to, is that, waiting for that is because you want to feel confident that you're going to look good, that you're going to look perfect, and people are going to trust you. But go back to the authenticity piece, that they trust authenticity more than they trust everything being perfect behind the scenes. So if I were to go back and say, like, just start as you're learning in your journey. If an idea comes to your mind, write it down and just start. Just go for it, right? You'll get yeses, you'll get nos, and that's okay. If I were to go back, I don't want to age myself here, but at least 20 years, 25 or 30 years, I think. What I would tell my younger version as a coach is, when you knew that this was your innate ability to connect with people, to provide confidence to women, to support people, follow your intuition. I think, especially as women, your intuition is never wrong. If there is something that keeps nudging at you, and I do feel like this kind of, I'm going to call it a career or role, has been nudging me actually for a very long time. Hindsight's 2020, but if I were to talk to my younger self, I would say follow your intuition. It is never wrong. If this is something you feel like, wow, I think I would like to do that, just do it. Just do it. And you might like it and you might not, and you might resonate and you might not, and that's also okay. But following your intuition, I think, is probably one of the biggest superpowers that anybody can have. And I think when people don't follow their intuition, they tend to probably stay back and hold themselves back from things that can truly provide them the happiness they're looking for. So and as I have young daughters now, and I tell them this today, my famous, words to them is, what's your gut telling you, right? Really teaching them how to follow their gut. So coaching for me comes, or how I've been implementing it is coming from probably very some from non-traditional, right? And everyone, I always say, everyone decides, how do you want your coaching to look? I am one that loves to talk to an audience. Integrating or starting my coaching practice online has been how I chose to start. I have my Instagram handle called Her Confident Edge. So I do a lot of coaching through my social media, which tends to lead to audiences that want to listen to what I have to say in terms of, just teaching about confidence in everyday life. So I do a lot of coaching through social media, as well as taking on, I would say, probably minimal level of clients. I have a very busy life today, so I always structure my life around what makes more sense. Right now, I am ready to almost launch. My business is called Her Confident Edge, and it'll be leaching into group coaching, online group coaching programs. So that is how, I always envisioned myself to take my coaching. I love to talk to large audiences is actually something that I thrive on. And I love individual, I love one-to-one, but I do love coaching big audiences. So that is where I've decided is where I want to take it. And then in the works, coming up hopefully soon, next couple of months, will be podcasting. So I want to take to the mic. Yeah, the mic makes me happy. And so looking at incorporating podcasting into my business so I can again reach the masses, do it when it fits in sort of my busy schedule right now with a family and make it work for the time that I'm in, the time of my life that I'm in today, which is, sometimes it's part Ubering, part parenting, part wifing. There's just a lot of parts to my life. So being able to take a coaching business and integrate it however I can. And again, the world is your oyster. You choose how you want your coaching practice to go. And so again, social media is a big part. Podcasting will be a big part of what I do. And group coaching, yeah, is how my practice will start to be integrated now. Starting a coaching business, I would say it's not for the faint of heart. But starting it for me was really interesting. It was me going through all of the motions that I envisioned helping women with. And it was, how do I make decisions without spiraling, right? Confidence is definitely affected by that. We tend to do this all the time as women. And it wasn't any different for your business. So going into starting your business, trying to make decisions on what I wanted to do, how I wanted to show up without spiraling into what are people going to think of me? Am I going to look dumb? Like, we use that, famous word everyone uses, which is imposter syndrome, and it's used a lot, but it is a valid thought that women say, well, if I didn't, an Instagram live, how am I going to look? Are they going to think I'm dumb or how are they going to see me? And so starting with the online piece as well, because the online piece is a very tough world to put yourself in front of, because you're not just talking to your one-on-one client at this point. You are putting yourselves out to a larger audience. And so it brought me through, how do I make those decisions that I want for my business without spiraling? How do I set boundaries on what I want to do and what I don't want to do? And that transition has been hard because some of it is unconventional to what some coaches do today. And there was always a real fear of, oh my goodness, are coaches in the coaching industry going to, look at me and say, that's unconventional. Why are we coaching that way? Because everyone has opinions to almost everything that we do. And so transitioning to that, and especially with what I'm focusing on, pushing through that has only helped me in terms of content. It's only helped me in terms of not worrying about what other coaches are doing, knowing that if this is my style, then I'm going to stick to the style and you'll always end up attracting the clients that are attracted to you, right? And if there aren't, it's okay. But so that transition has been interesting because it was a lot of content creating in the beginning. But coming now into the flow, I graduated in February. So coming now into that flow of doing it consistently and really just being myself it's now starting to feel a lot better and a lot more seamless. But I had to go through all of those emotions that I help people with. So that was also a really big learning journey. The vision for my coaching business is to have a community. The community is so big for me. I do think, and especially as women, community is so important. So the vision for my business is to build a Her Confident Edge community where people within my community are not only being supported by me, but are being supported by each other. I have a really big vision on having, something very unique for young female athletes. I have a daughter who is a very competitive athlete, and being able to identify at such a young age where confident leaks start, especially with athletes, has been extremely eye-opening for me. And so I see my business going into not just a community of adult women that may go through different stages in life where confidence can hurt a little or confidence can feel a little weak at times, but also how do we start off with that age group that really needs the most support? How do I help the young girls set a foundation for how they feel and think about, not being perfect, making mistakes, maybe not using their voice as much. And so I want to start from that age where I feel like girls can get impacted at such a young age. So whoever is in my community can really start to thrive over the years. And how do we support these young girls? A lot of times it's not their desire or their inability to have that confidence, but how about the people around them? So how do I support the parents? That really confidence in women starts at such a young age, and it doesn't start at 40, right? It starts at a super young age. And how do we enable them? So my vision really is to create that community where it's not only me providing support, but the community's providing support for each other. The most inspiring part of building this coaching business is recognizing the need, recognizing people's desire to want to do better for themselves. It's been really eye-opening to see how many people are also struggling with this. How many women keep quiet in terms of, their fears and their desires and their confidence. What has been inspiring to me is really just seeing women in their aha moments where, through a little bit of support, really just start to say, you know what, it's my time and it's okay. And I don't care what people think. And that is truly inspiring. And I'm going to go back to sort of the young girls as well. I get really inspired when I see, and I say young girl athletes because that's my focus, but even any young girl that can find that little confidence in them to put themselves out there. I think it's a very scary world with social media when it comes to these younger generations, and putting yourselves out there, I feel, is almost what they do on an everyday basis, not necessarily in the most positive and self-reflecting way. And so what's inspiring to me is to watch sort of those young girls growing up that are using those platforms to be able to, share positivity, to be able to, whatever it is that they're talking about online or sharing their, other new businesses, right? We find young entrepreneurs already that are so brave in starting it. So it's been super inspiring for me to see how a little bit of coaching can really help people just own it, which is really fun to see. The hardest part is almost sometimes not being able to help as many people as you want to help. It's also, when we see the ability in people, when we see, individuals that we know have it in them to attain whatever it is they're looking to attain, that might be fearful, that might be scared, and still find it very difficult to break through. Because sometimes it's not about the confidence that we have in people. It's about how do we instill the confidence in them. And sometimes it's really hard to see when, we have people and women and girls who are finding it extra hard to find that leak, or finding it extra hard to make decisions without spiraling because they're still so stuck in the fear of, maybe their past, or the fear of present decisions, or the fear of disappointment. And that's the hardest part. Like when you truly believe that everybody has it in them to really obtain what it is they want to obtain, it's really hard when they don't see it in themselves. And it's heart-wrenching at the time because you want so hard to be able to motivate and coach, but you have to step back sometimes and say there's got to be a point in which they see it themselves, and it will be their time when it's their time, but you're waiting for that breakthrough. And if it sometimes takes longer, you feel frustrated sometimes that you're not able to help them quicker. And that's the part that, you really have to let go of. Everyone's got their own pace in which they work with. And sometimes it is a certain aha moment, but, everybody has to have it within themselves. And it's different timelines. Even though we want to be able to switch everybody in 6 weeks, it won't happen with most people. CTEDU was such a valuable start to this business. What I loved about CTEDU was the community. And when I talked about how important it was for me to develop my future business into a community, it's no surprise that I landed with CTEDU because I think how they've developed a community aligns with exactly what I feel is important. And so they have provided me with that community. Still keeping in touch with coaches today, coaches that were my assessors that listened to my first phone calls where they were probably cringeworthy at the time, but how they continue to support you in that perspective, continue to provide us with the tools, the resources, some of the seminars and the coaching sessions that are provided for us to continue growing. And how they really foster community within your own class and your classmates. I love that, 7 months later or 6 months later after a class, we're still on our group chat supporting each other every day or every week on things. And so CTEDU has really been a great support, and I would say kind of like a good big brother to show us how it's done when it comes to how we need to support each other in this business. So, I mean, outside of class, I haven't had an opportunity to attend events at this point, but the master classes, and believe it or not, the access to our content that we used in class is so super helpful. Being able to reference back, and I mean, we're still not perfect at this stage, right? And we go back and we think, I do remember talking about this. There's so many opportunities for the master classes that we've been on, for those that are doing their ICF prep, being able to go on there and again learn and practice with other coaches that are planning on writing their certification has been great. I still go back and I still reference resources and I still go through my book and I still say, what else do we have on there that I can access? The tools were an amazing start to helping me with my business. It's with some of these things where I'm like, I really don't have time to think about what a contract might look like. And so being able to leverage the tools so that I could concentrate on some of the other things, still to this day is very helpful. And anytime you can save time and really focus on talking to more people is always a win.